So today we have our second class on predator-prey dynamics. It will be less, well, there's a lot of mathematics, but I won't do the calculations. Okay, I will write the equations and then I will do it numerically on the computer, and so some, less analytical class. Anyhow, so about the books, there are two new books for you if you want to take a look. One is virus dynamics. Okay, virus dynamics, most basic model has a kind of predator-prey thing. So you have the virus, you have the uninfected cells, and you have the infected cells, and the virus, and so on. There's a whole thing. Well, this is the most basic thing. This is a very controversial book, How Species Interact. I mean, this is a guy that has been involved in a long discussion about the best way to model predator-prey dynamics. So he's a kind of outlier, outsider, but at least at the beginning, it's very intelligent. So even if it's not, it's well written, and it's critical to what people do in general. And then after some time, I think like in 2000, I don't know, 5, 6, I can't remember. There's a paper which is very curious. It's about written by two people. One is this guy here, Lev Ginsburg, and the other is Peter Abrams, which is the opponent of the ideas of this guy. So they wrote together a paper saying what we agree and where we disagree. So I think it's a very civilized way, okay? They didn't go on and fighting forever. So, okay, we agree on some parts and we don't agree on other parts. So, good. So, okay, so today we want to go beyond the Lotka-Volterra model, and let us just remember what we did yesterday. So Lotka-Volterra model is a model where we have a prey that can grow exponentially, and without the predator is the only regulator of the population of the prey, and the predator is a specialist, and it's kind of voracious. Voracious means the more you have of prey, the more he consumes. More prey, more consumption, indefinite. Okay, so these are some assumptions, okay, that we made. Now, we wrote down equations. Let me just write them. So you get the prey. So the prey could grow exponentially and would be consumed by a predator in this way. And we had the predator, which is something like has a would have a B, NP here minus dP. So this is the death rate. This is the growth rate of the prey. This is the death rate of the predator in the absence of prey. And this is the interaction term, which models the consumption of prey. Right? So therefore, it's a negative sign here, because this makes the population of the prey be smaller, decrease, and this is a positive sign here, means that the effect of this term is to increase the population of the predator. Okay, so okay, we went through some manipulations. We have new variables and analysis of fixed points, and it turned out. So I don't want to review this. It turned out that there was a fixed point which was neutrally stable. Okay, neutrally stable was when we had something like this. You had the prey here, the predator here, and you had a fixed point. Depends on what units you use. At a certain point, I made this fixed point to be 1, 1, but this was just for for sake of simplicity in the analysis, in the mathematical analysis, okay? So we don't need this now, okay? And well, then what you had this this. Let me see if I can do the beautiful thing. No, okay. You have this null clients, and you had this guy here, and then you had. We have shown that there was oscillations around this fixed point. Okay, and what we actually showed that we showed that there is an oscillatory behavior, but I didn't. With analysis, simple analysis, I couldn't really say if this was real circles or not. Okay, but going the next step with a more complete analysis and using some ideas of geometric locus of some certain conservation law and so on, it turned out that the trajectories are like this. Okay, they are getting closer to a circle as you are closer to the fixed point, the neutrally stable fixed point. So this was the Lotka-Volterra phase plane or configuration plane. Depends how you want to call it. So, and we discovered that predator-prey dynamics induces oscillations in the population. And then we came to the end of the class, and what we discussed is how is the problems with this. So one, obviously there's a problem that it's incomplete to describe nature. We have only two species, generalist and so on, but we will today modify the model. But the model has an intrinsic problem, which was it's not structurally stable, and by meaning structurally stable means that if I'm on this trajectory, and then this is perturbed, because anyhow, even if it's not an environmental perturbation, there are other species interacting also. There are the resources for the prey that may oscillate, maybe something happening. So you could be on this trajectory and circling like this, and then suddenly you get back, you jump to something here, and then you get trapped here, and then you get maybe here, and maybe then you got here, and so you will never close the circle. You won't see an oscillation. Okay? So this is what we call a non-structurally stable situation, which should prevent you from actually seeing this in nature. And another point which was important, I didn't stress so much, is also each of this trajectories here, which represent periodic oscillations. Each of circle has a certain period, so it will repeat itself after a certain period. So this period is not fixed. So if I look for population of certain species in a certain place where there are lots of these species, and I go and look at the other place where there are less species, there should be different periods. Okay? And that's not what we see usually. Okay? That's not what we see usually. So there are the famous cases, which is very, famous cases of the hair and lynx and predator-prey dynamics and northern Canada, and there are historical data. Okay. Oh, okay. Look there. This one is. So, okay. So there is. This is like this. How do you know the number of lens and hair? The lens goes after hair. There's lots of photos, and then if you look on Google, how do you know this historical data from the middle of the 19th century? So this was a region where there were a lot of hunters. Right? There were a big company, the Hudson Bay Company, which bought from the individual hunters their the animals they hunted. So they have a kind of track year by year or month by month of how many prey, how many lynx, mainly hare, but also lynxes came to them. Okay? So you can look at this, and then you have oscillations in this data. Okay? So there's oscillations, and then you say, oh, this should be predator-prey because one of is the predator, another prey. Okay. So, but this, this is the way of collecting your data is actually not very scientific, and this it's a commercial thing. So that there may be influences of hunting seasons, market oscillallations of the price of the prey or whatever. So, and there may be also hunting efforts being different from one year to the other year. Okay, so it's kind of it's completely uncontrolled data. It's not data that you really have some idea of control. Okay, and it has a very curious thing. Because it starts, okay, there are the oscillations. It's not year by year. It's a cycle of more years. So it could be potentially related to predator-prey dynamics. And what you see is that a kind of predator-prey cycle, like Lot-Volterra, and then there's some region where you get as the cycle. We showed that was like something like this, yes? And suddenly the cycle goes on the other way. Okay? So this would be non-biological, because this would mean that instead of having the prey growing and then the predator growing, you would have first the predator growing and then the prey growing, which is non-consistent, okay? So this is probably problem with the data collection, okay? Okay. But anyhow, one thing that was noted at the time was that this kind of oscillations were synchronized over a large region, and it still can be that this has been investigated later, okay? So there are cycles, and they have the same period, either in the east or the west, and so on, in different regions where you find it. So this speaks against Lotka-Volterra, because Lotka-Volterra the period depends on the population. So the population being larger or being smaller will have different periods, and that's not what we see, okay, in those kind of data. There are better data from Norway and Sweden with voles and so on, which are better this is already 20th century, middle 20th century. So, so there is this kind of intrinsic period. Okay, so it's a kind of intrinsic period. So, what we want would not be, something realistic would not be a phase diagram like that. It should be something where you have, if you were to describe cycles which are related to predator-prey dynamics, if they ever exist, because maybe we can have changed the model and the cycles disappear, but you don't expect if it's a change that it completely disappears, because why? Well, there were the cycles, and I do some small change in the model, something of the cycle should remain, okay? But what you would expect if you see cycles, okay, is that you have a certain cycle here, okay, which is preferred one, which has a certain period, okay, has a certain period, capital T, and if you start here, you don't get another cycle here. You should approach this one, okay, over the time. And if you start here, you expect you can somehow spiral out and go to this preferred cycle, okay? So this is called that's what in mathematics would be a limit cycle. Okay? So limit cycles is like, imagine instead of having a fixed point that's an attractor, okay, we have fixed points, and then you look, okay, this guy is stable, all trajectory converge to this fixed point after some time. Then you can also now have the situation where instead of conversion to a fixed point, you should go to a preferred cycle. Instead of the point, you get the cycle. So it's kind of attractor, okay? It's not technically, the names are, I'm being a little bit hand-waving argument, but the idea is that after a long time, we'll approach a preferred cycle, which has a certain period, which is the intrinsic period related to that system, okay? And so this has been more realistic. Right? We don't have a model that has this for the time being. We don't have it, okay? Because this one is not this one, okay? So we will look at if you can have models that have limit cycles in today, okay? Now, what does it mean here? Okay, if I were to here I had that if I'm on this trajectory with a certain period. If I perturb, I get another trajectory with another period. So the period of the oscillation would be different from one to another. Here, what you get is you may get out of the cycle, and then you get something which has not even a period, but should be, for instance, doing something like this. Okay, approaching, and it starts with oscillations that are, say, faster or slower, and then this period, the oscillations will converge to a certain period. Okay, so this is the limit cycle idea, and we will see if we have something like that in more general models of predator-prey dynamics. But now, before starting, I want you to forget ecology and give me an example of everyday limit cycle. Mike, where are the mics are here. One, then here's the other one. And you have to turn it on. Yeah.
Hi, maybe the heart? The heart system, like when you are doing an exercise, it like does something and then it has to come back to the normal rhythm.
Yeah.
Because if not, you die.
Exactly.
And
okay.
Same when you're.
Okay, you got it in the. Exactly. The heart system is a limit cycle. You have a certain heart rhythm, and you perturb it, you run, okay? And then you stop running. Then you don't stay with 180 beats per second per minute, okay? You go back to your natural heartbeat. Okay, so there's something that is your natural heartbeat, and the period, you have a certain period or a frequency, and if you perturb it, you will go to different values, but when you stop and you are again at rest, let's say, you have again your natural heartbeat. Okay, so this is the idea of a limit cycle. Okay, you are with the mic. Wanted to say something or just held in the mic? Okay. So, okay. Well, in order to progress, we will have to consider more biological mechanisms that should be taken into account beyond the ones that we took here. Okay, we will still stay with the idea of specialist predator. Okay, that's a choice. Okay, could deal different. And I mean, you can think of lots of mechanisms that could regulate populations that were not taken into account. Okay, lots of them. But it means that we have lots of possible modifications of the basic logical equations, and then, well, each of them will have some dynamics. Okay, so we will stay with the generalist things, the generalist predator, but we will suppose that the most obvious thing to do is to put a carrying capacity for the prey, okay? So the most basic thing that you can ever do is writing something like this. So this is a Lotka-Volterra model, with a carrying capacity for the prey. Okay? So do you have any expectation of what will happen in this case? Yeah, expectation here. Where's the Mike?
Right. Yeah. Maybe the prey will be like reach the current capacity, but not all the current capacity because have the predator, and the predator are gonna be the same. So just two stable points when we have this biostability, and if the other fixed points are 0, 0, and and that's all.
Okay, 0, 0, and obviously also that if D is too large here, that probably means that the death rate is dominant for the prey, so the prey goes away, and you have the prey at the carrying capacity. But that are the trivial things. That I mean, if something has a birth rate that is smaller than the death rate, it goes to 0. But what we want is not this. Okay, we want something non-trivial. Okay, so one idea is that okay, this could grow up to a certain point, but well, you don't expect it to get to the carrying capacity if the prey is there. Okay, but the point is now, will there be cycles or not? Okay.
I think that we won't have these oscillation cycles of the number of the prey because of the carrying capacity and the predation of the prey.
Okay. Now, let me take the next step and a challenge. Okay, now, take carrying capacity very large, okay? Very large, millions, okay? So this here is a very, very small number. So this should approach Lotka-Volterra things, yes? Okay? So there will be some cycles at certain regime of K. You expect some oscillations, okay? If K's go to infinity, you have oscillations. Well, it's a little bit later, not infinity, but a little bit less. You don't expect them to disappear from nothing. Puff, no circles at all. There should be some, if not circles, some oscillations. But will they disappear if K is very small? Okay, this is a different question. Okay, if K is very small, then this will dominate. Not dominate, but maybe this will be such a way that you never can even explore certain parts of your axis for n here, because the carrying capacity is very small, so it will restrain the system to stay near something. Okay, and the something is something that we don't know for the moment. Okay, so so something has to do with the carrying capacity, okay? So carrying capacity, in this case, how can we interpret carrying capacity? It's the carrying capacity for the prey, okay? It has nothing to do with the predator, the carrying capacity. It's the resources. So large, K being big means the environment is rich. Okay? It's a rich environment, and K being small, it's a poor environment. Okay, so K is connected to the prey, but also its relation to the environment, and the rich environment has a large K. Now, okay, very good. So let us. I want to do if you are more on the mathematical side, can be a challenge for you. It's just repeat the calculation from yesterday, okay? And find the fixed point and the analysis of the fixed point and so on. And you have to find that famous eigenvalue. If the eigenvalue turns out to be, well, because, okay, before I say what you could do, what I would not do, you could say, you should draw the null lines again, okay? And while the null lines for P has not even changed, okay? So it was this line, and it continues to be this line. Now, the null line for N has changed, okay? The null line for N, if you write it like this, it should be R times N, 1 minus N over K, okay? Minus C and P equal to 0, because this is what is the null line definition. Okay? So then you can cancel the n, and then you have r times 1 minus n over k minus cp equal to 0. And this is not, when you didn't have this was just p equal to r over c. Okay? That was that famous line that went here. Now, it's not, it's a relation between n and p. And it's a linear relation between n and p is a line on this plane. So it will be something like that. A line, okay? So, I won't do the all analysis because I think it's a little bit heavy to be on. But if you're more mathematical minded, I think it doesn't take even half an hour to calculate this fixed point, which is easy to calculate, and repeat what we did yesterday. So what you expect is more or less that these errors here, okay, would be more or less the same. I won't draw it, but I didn't draw it very well, but you expect it to be more or less the same, okay? But so what could happen here, and this is, I'm not showing you the demonstration. Okay, so, okay, first, if you want to do the calculation at the end, you have to calculate the lambda. Lambda was imaginary, meaning that the dynamics was oscillatory. So what you would find in this case, that you would get a lambda which is complex. Okay, you'd get something like lambda is something like some lambda 0 plus I times some lambda 1, which yesterday this was r times m and some notation that I used, okay? And then you would have this one, okay? And then you can show that this one is negative, okay? So you would have an exponential of lambda t will be e to lambda 0 t times e to I lambda 1. This is a kind of amplitude, okay? When lambda 0 being smaller than 0, being negative, this is something that this part decreases exponentially. And this part is just the same as yesterday, that's in a kind of oscillation, okay?
Teacher.
Yeah.
I want to say just something. The lambda 0, it's related with n, because if you have like n, like lambda 0, it's really close to 0, there will be perfect oscillations. So this is this case of the local Volterra. So
yeah. Okay. All of this will depend on k.
Yes.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah. Sure. So you should be able to show that k going into infinity takes lambda 0 to 0.
Yes. So
okay. Mathematically, it's this. The limit of lambda 0 will depend on k. Okay. Because if there were no k, there would be no lambda 0, because if we did the calculation yesterday, it was imaginary. Okay? And so this has to do with the k, and probably would be able to show that k going to infinity would take you to lambda 0 going to 0. Okay? Anyhow, you have a composition of oscillations, but the amplitude of the oscillations is decaying. So what is this? This is something like oscillators, okay, with an amplitude that goes to 0, and therefore will approach a fixed point. Okay, so this fixed point will turn out to be constant, stable, but it's a stable approached by cycles, which would look like this here. Okay, this is stable, but you start here and you still have cycles, but there are cycles which are smaller and smaller amplitude, okay? Which would mean that you have a spiral here instead of having this closed trajectories. You have a spiral, and you spiral to the fixed point. Okay, so I don't mean that you should. That I demonstrated this. So if you want the calculation, it's not difficult. You can do it, and if not, then just believe in me. You have to build trust in your teachers. An act of faith. And so, okay. But I think, at least in this general, it seems reasonable that this could happen. And so let us look if this is true, if you do a numerical integration. Does everybody know what it means solving a differential equation through a numerical method? Is it clear for everybody? It's sometimes somebody has no idea of what it is. It's just the program that does the magic. But I mean, do you know conceptually what is integrating numerically a differential equation? Everybody. I don't have to explain. Okay, somebody not. Anybody else? Everybody is very clear. Okay, so in 5 minutes crash course, okay? Yeah, so you have say a single differential equation like g f dt, okay, which is equal to some function, okay, of f, say function g of f, okay. This can be a polynomial, sine, or whatever function, okay. It can be a rational function, anything, okay. Then you should say what's the definition of the. I will do it with Euler method, okay. So this is just f of say t plus some increment minus f of t over h equal to g of f, okay? And now you can say, instead of really solving for the whole, solving completely for any value of t, we go step by step from t to t plus the increment here, okay? So I could say that from this f of t plus something is equal to this thing, okay, plus. This means that if I know f at time t, okay, well, and I have a function here that I can calculate also at the time t, then at the next time step, I can get it at the next time step, okay? Okay, then you say, okay, I have it now, I had it at time 0, and now I have it 1 time step more. Okay, let's call it time 1, okay? Then you say, okay, but if I know time 1, I can do the same thing. I know that time 1, I calculate is at time 1, and I get it at time 2. And so on, you get iterating. Therefore, you have solved the equation numerically. Okay? How good is this? It will depend on many things, but it depends on if you go from time step on small time step. Suppose that somebody tells you, an angel tells you that the solution is something which is like this. Okay, irregular thing. Now, if I take very small time steps, I will get this, okay? But if I take a large time step, I will get here, 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 and I don't get anything which resembles this. So you have to take the small time steps in order to get really the curve, okay? Obviously, then you have problems if you have equations that have very steep increase, okay? Very steep increase, you mean a very, very small a time step, which could maybe not be compatible with the capacities of your computer, for instance, okay? It would be steep cases, but you will never find really steep cases here, okay? Yeah, Mike. Okay, here. You have to turn it on. Yeah, you have to wait. It kind of warms up. Okay, when the first word you say that it refuses to amplify, and then it gets convinced. Okay.
Does it have a certain way to determine which one is the best time step? Is it always true that the smaller the time step, better the? Well,
it's a kind of art. Okay, you'd say mathematically it's the smaller the better, but I mean this could take you billions of time steps, and which should slow down your calculation of something that you don't need this kind of small time step. So it's more a kind of practical point, okay? I mean, the best is to have the small one, but sometimes you don't need it so small, okay? But if I have a sinus, for instance, my solution is a sinus, okay? If I go from here to here to here to here, this will already be nice, okay? We'll give you something which has the actual appearance of the sinus, okay? But you could say, okay, I could get it better if I smaller and smaller, but while smaller and smaller could take you to obtain something which is trivial, take you a lot of time, so you don't use it, okay?
I'm asking because when you know the answer, when you know where you want
to okay.
Okay, but when we don't know, like I want to see the dynamics. How do I know that this is really what's happening, or no? It's had some details that I would.
Okay. Yeah. So practical situation is you try several time steps. Okay. If you make it smaller and smaller, still more or less the same thing. That's okay. You don't need it smaller. Okay. If it changes a lot from you took an initial time step and then you used a smaller one and just completely different things. Okay, you have to get smaller. Okay, more or less like that. That's practical things. Okay, and well, people for biology there's a subject called numerical analysis, where people in mathematics that they can prove theorems about this convergence and so on. So I'm not a numerical analyst, so I can't speak a lot of it about this, but in practical terms, that's it. Okay, so this is numerical integration. So this is for one equation, but I mean you can do this for systems of equations for anything. You can go on it and implement this for whatever. So you can solve almost all equations. And there are some of them have singularities that go. Solution goes to infinity, then you have problems and so on. But most of the cases, all the equation that we will see here, you can solve it numerically. Okay. Now, so you say, okay, why are you doing all this qualitative analysis on the analytical things if you can solve it numerically? And why don't you solve it numerically from the very beginning? Why? Solving numerically needs numbers, which means that my parameters is not anymore like here, I have a B, a E, a C, and D. I have to give values to these guys. Otherwise, I cannot calculate this. It's numerical. Okay? Therefore, if you do the qualitative analysis, you find also the qualitative behavior for any values. And this gives you a lot of information, okay? And then if you want, you can confirm this by doing some numerical integration, seeing if it really worked, okay? But it's a numerical integration will need you need to put parameters, okay? So that's why we're again having a small side of the hell of the multiplication of parameters, okay? So here we played a little bit with the parameters so that we get a smaller number of parameters that are important. Okay, the same thing we did when we discussed competition. Okay, we do this non-dimensional. Remember, competition had a system of Volterra equation had 6 parameters, but we rescaled everything, and we got a system which has 3 parameters, which remained. Okay, so if you want to do some numerical analysis of something, okay, of a system of equations, you have to explore the space of parameters, of at least if you have no knowledge of the parameters. I mean, sometimes you have accessory knowledge. You know that certain parameter has a certain value, then it's okay. That's fine. But sometimes you have parameters that you don't know. You want to explore the solution. You have to explore all the possible combination of these parameters, which is called the space of parameters. And then if you have a superdimensional space of parameters, you get to hell, because this will be for each combination of parameters you do the integration and plot some characteristics, for instance. So you'd have to do easily millions of integrations by exploring even a not so large number of parameters. Therefore, there have been developed methods which rely on statistics to sample parameters. If you have a lot, I mean, if you have a large number of parameters, the dimension of your space of parameters is large. You try to sample in some way, okay, and not try to really get all the parameters. You try to sample, and there's a famous algorithm called very curious name, which is the Latin hypercube algorithm. Okay, you will see it somewhere. Okay? So you sample things. Okay, so let's go back to our predator-prey dynamics, and not for the general. Let me put this here. Not to the general discussion about integration, and let's see what we can do. This here. Hope it works, because this kind of thing, when you do live action with with Python or whatever, with any code, it has a tendency, exactly when you go live, it crashes, it goes somewhere. You have seen it also with other people, I don't know, with Adriana and Sarah. So, I have here 3, okay, let's begin with a simple Lotka Volterra. This is something we use in different, we have at the ICTP usually a summer course on mathematical biology, and there's some pedagogical material on Python for you to know how to integrate things, and so this is one of them. It's something like that. I'm not good at coding. I don't want to explain everything, but anyhow, what you have here is usually you need to call the relevant libraries. Okay, and here then at this first example is for the logistic equation. Our old logistic equation, okay? Just using the Euler method, okay? So the Euler method is because you have a time step here, which is the time step that I wrote there. It's now called dt instead of hash, and you have a time array from 0 to 10, which is I want to integrate from time 0 to time 10 with steps of size dt, okay? Okay, then there's the function that will, where's the function? Okay, here's the function that is x times 1 minus x, which is the logistic, okay? And then there's a code that will do the integration, okay? We don't want to go into the code. I can send you these things. If you are good with Python, you will understand in a minute, okay? So, and if you do this, you get immediately this here. So as we know the solution, we can also plot the exact solution. Okay, we have it because we have found the solution, not numerically, but we have a formula. Okay, so we can compare how good is our integration to the to the approximate solution. So obviously all of this is an approximate solution because we're going not on all time, not continuous time, we are going step by step, and we're approximating the things, okay? So I see that it's pretty good, but not so good, okay? And you say, okay, but my dt was 0.5. Let's put it to 0.1 here and run it again. So you get complete agreement because I have a smaller dt now. If I put a super big dt, it will be a mess, okay? So if you put 1 here, will be complete mess. Not so complete mess anyhow. But I mean, you need it. Okay. So now you don't need to. Now, okay, let's be practical. Any time you do numerical integration of equations, you don't want to use the Euler method. Euler method. I mean, Euler is a long time ago. Okay, even there were no computers. So over the centuries, and mainly after the introduction of efficient computers, many people from this community of numerical analysis and numerical calculus and so on developed very efficient methods to solve differential equations very efficiently. Even if they are steep or not, they do a lot of better algorithms that the simple Euler algorithm. So they modify the Euler algorithm and have a different way of finding the solution, which is more efficient and will give you pretty much good results, and you don't have to care about the time step because it's adjusted by the algorithm, okay? So it's, for our purposes, this is a kind of black box. But I mean, it's, sometimes people have the tendency, I don't want any black box in my life, okay? No black boxes, I do Euler. Okay, but you are not being very, I mean, if this is for research, okay, you want the best algorithms, and you don't want to study 1 year of numerical integration, numerical calculus, to understand a super complicated algorithm, which then has to be implemented in say, in Python or whatever, R, Fortran, and so on, which has to be implemented, and in an efficient way, okay, not using too much memory and so on and so on. You won't do this. This has been done. Why would you do it again, okay? So you just need to understand what is numerical integration, and maybe if you run into weird results, you have to look which is the actual algorithm that has been used, okay? But this is 99% of the time not necessary. So there are functions in R, in functions in Python, which already do the best numerical integration that you can ever have, okay? So this is what you do when you go for this here, okay? Here, the next step here uses a function which is called ODE int, okay? Okay, you have to give the function, the initial condition, the variable time t, and r and k, which are the parameters of the function, okay, which uses what you would have in the integration above as inputs in a function, and then you use this function to get the solutions, okay, which is very easy. And then when you do this again, oops, oh no, this is lot level care. Huh? Oh, okay. I don't want a lot level care. Okay. Okay. So I want what is the function? Okay, this one. So if you do this, that's the plot. If you do this with the OGE int function, you get immediately some very good integration when compared to the exact solution. It can not even be distinguished. Okay, so the times that has been adjusted, everything is fine, everything is efficient, and you are done with it. So okay, now you can do the same thing for Lotka Volterra, okay, instead of the logistic. Okay, you do a bit more practice with the coding. I don't want to go into this because I'm not a good coder. So, but anyhow, you get somewhere here. You can see that you have some array. Which is, you see, you have a R, X, index 0 is N, and N and X index 1 is P. Okay, prey and predator. Okay, so you have R times N minus C times N times P. Here you have a little bit, instead of writing B, we use E times C, so instead of B you have the E. It's more like the real efficiency. The product of N and P minus the decay of the predator. So that's the function. That's the definition of the Lotka-Volterra of this small function. Okay. So then you do the numerical integration, and what we will do is find the solution. Okay. So you find the solution by doing this, and that's the solution. Okay. So these are the cycles, okay? These are the cycles. It's a periodic solution, and it has the same. First, V is here is a victim, okay? That's the way that is done in this book here. He simply always calls it victim. The book by Gotelli. And so you go. This increases. It's the prey increasing, and after that you have the predator. Okay, so why are the scales different? Because we have put some parameters that make the scale different, but it usually doesn't need to be very different. Okay, but usually this is smaller than this one. You consume a lot of prey in order to create some predators. Okay, so it's usually by a kind of energetic reasoning and metabolic reasoning. Right? So that's it. We integrated up to 50. This is a cycle, repeats itself. It's the Lotka-Volterra cycle. And now we can plot this on we want more. We want this phase plane here. Okay, and P. You can also write a code that will do this, and we will make the following. We could just plot the trajectory in this plane that corresponds to that solution, but I will plot several trajectories, each of them corresponding to a different initial condition. Okay, so when here you have the plot. Okay, you don't need even to integrate again. Okay, you have already done. But so you did the plot, but we do new plots, which we use a new integration. Okay. Here, which should be ODA int, and here is these numbers here are the initial conditions, okay? Prey and predator. And here, so I will use 10 and 4, 20 and 10, 15, 20, 23, just more or less randomly chosen, and I will plot them all in the same plane, okay? So I will get this, okay? That's what you get. That are the Lotka-Volterra. This is still. These are the Lotka-Volterra. Here are with a point is the initial condition, okay. And these are the circles of Lotka-Volterra equation, okay. The ones that we will destroy, okay. Now you can do this for the next. Equation, which is Lotka-Volterra with a carrying capacity, which is exactly the same thing that we had with the before, but with a carrying capacity. So you go to the function here, and you see immediately here that the function that instead of having R0 times n, which x is n, I have 1 minus n over k. And I need a new parameter here in the function. And I'm done, okay? Now I can play with the carrying capacity and see what happens. Okay. So it depends obviously on many things. So I'm starting with a carrying capacity of 3,000. Okay, I played with this before the class, so 3,000 will be pretty large Because I mean, it's not that 3000 is absolutely large. It depends on the dynamics, but I've just adjusted it to be more or less large. Okay, and then you go, and let's see what happens. Okay. So, okay, let us. No, that's not what. Okay, that's what we want. Okay, but before that, okay, I'm taking 100 time steps. Okay, and what I get is something which is similar to what I had, but it's decreasing, okay? It's decreasing, okay? Well, then say, okay, but what will be the rest? Okay, instead of integrating 100 time until 100, let's take time until, I don't know, 500. Let's see. Where's time? Okay, instead of 100, we take 500. Okay, and run it again. And you see, it gets close. Okay, there's there's a lot of oscillations here. You see that, okay, but now from 0 to 500, there's a problem with the. These are oscillations. That's not that it's full. Okay, so it goes to some fixed point here. It's approaching a fixed point, and this one is also approaching a fixed point, which is very close to 0. Okay, and this is not a good dimension. Okay, so that's what we had discussed. Okay, now we want to see the phase plot. We want to see the spiraling. Okay, but so let us do this first again with only 100, in order not to get too many trajectories, too long time integration. Oops. Oh. Okay, so that's the previous one. Now I do this one. And I get that is the trajectory. Now, it's spiraling, okay? But we know that the amplitude is decreasing, okay? And it will so both of them are decreasing, okay? P and N. So it will spiral and always be smaller and smaller. And why is this here? Because we didn't take long enough time to approach the actual point where it will go. So therefore I do it again with 500, let's say. Run it again with 500. And I do the plot. And you see that this thing is spiraling to the fixed point. Okay? So the prediction of using a carrying capacity is that you go through cycles, but you have a decreasing number of the amplitude decreases and goes to a fixed point eventually. So, okay, nice. But I promised you a limit cycle here. I don't have any limit cycle here. That's just a spiraling on a focus, okay? Now, if you want more, you have to put something more else in your equations, and if you want to put more in the equations, you need more biological facts. Okay? So, therefore, let me erase. Where's the here. Okay, I will erase it. This is old stuff now. Okay, not Volterra and so on. It's old stuff. Yeah. Yeah, the mic.
I was curious. I had a doubt only in regards of the decreases the amplitude and the graph. Also, the oscillations, they decrease with time.
Yeah, but the value of the fixed point, I think it depends on k also.
Oh, okay. Because the graph was like almost like decreasing. I don't know. When you showed the graph, the first one.
It was decreasing, yeah. So This is the oscillation.
Yeah.
It's going to a fixed point, which is somewhere between here, 20, and I think it's like 3 here. Okay, so it's oscillating here.
Okay.
And it's going to this.
And
Okay.
the fixed point depends on the k, like you said.
Yeah, okay, we could do the exercise with a different k. Let's see. Okay, I'm not actually very sure about that. So let's see. If I have 3,000, okay, I would put 300. Okay? Let's see what happens. Okay, no, more or less the same, okay? Actually. Yeah, because the k only makes this thing here. It will cross always at the same point, okay? So it has gone to... Now, if I do the k super small, instead of 300, I go to 30, I don't see, I mean, it's such a small k that there's no time to oscillate. It goes more or less, I mean, it has one oscillation and it's already there, okay? So, okay, so let us put some names on this. When we introduce the carrying capacity, that has kind of stabilizing effect, okay? We had circles, and the carrying capacity is a kind of damping, okay? It's like in physics, it'd be friction, okay? You have an oscillator that gets slower and slower. That's more or less the same thing here, and you have this stabilizing effect of the finite carrying capacity, okay? If we want to investigate the possibility of having a model that has a limit cycle, and it also has, I mean, if we will try to modify this equation to have a better model that has a limit cycle, we have to have some more destabilizing mechanism. So you have a competition with the stabilizing and destabilizing mechanisms. Okay? Well, okay, so I won't do all the calculations, but I will write down. Yeah.
What would be the impact of the Ailey effect in this
Oh, that can give you a lot of things. I mean, Ailey effect will make the trajectory, the fate of the system on asymptotically depend on initial conditions, and you can have collapse. If you have an Ailey effect on the prey, then prey can go away, the predator also goes away, you have extinction. We can have this. Okay? But you don't have any more of these things here, like it's not lines, it's parabolas and so on. You can do the analysis with Ailey effect, okay? Could be a good exercise. Put a simple Ailey effect on the prey, and then you will have regimes where you go more or less like this, but maybe you get also something which goes to 0, which is a collapse. Okay? How to? How often you use numerical integration in my research, and in my present research all the time. I mean, we work in a group. Okay. So I'm old school guy. So I know how to use the things, but if you do it, for instance, for a paper, and you do it efficiently, and you have to do a lot of analysis, it's usually a collaborator that does. Okay, a student or collaborator or something. Okay, but as I've been working with epidemiology over the last 2 or 3 years, you have equations that can grow in a number, a system of 18 equations. So there's no qualitative way of looking at that. So you need the numerical integration all the time. And even if you do some mathematical work, sometimes you want to compare your mathematical results with some approximation of a solution or something, and then you want to compare with numerics. So it's all the time there. Okay? But this doesn't mean that all mathematical biology has to use has to use numerical integrations. The question was about my own research. So my research line has numerical integrations. Okay. Now, okay. Here again, we want to look at this term now. Okay. So I have d and dt. Here has something. Okay. And then I have this c and p. Okay. So imagine that p is equal to 1. Okay. Or if you want, you can divide by p here. Okay. So this, what is this? This is the number of prey being consumed by unit time. Okay. It will be, there's a negative sign here. Yes. Okay. It's decreasing, so the prey is being consumed. N is decreasing. I mean, this thing makes n decrease, and it's the number of prey that is being consumed by unit time. Okay, per predator. So one predator consumes c times n prey per unit time. Okay, and that's what I told you. That means that the prey consumption, okay, as a function of n is just Cn. Okay, so I would write here, prey consumption per unit time. Okay, it's just this, and this is the super voracious guy. That is it's able to consume without stopping, and the more prey, the more consumption. Okay, so this is usually a good approximation if you have a very small number of prey, but not small number of prey. Okay, all the predators are starving actually. Okay, so you double the resources they will be able to eat. Okay, but at a certain point that should not be true anymore. Okay, so somehow there would be some maximum of consumption that is the prey is able to consume, and somehow this has to go to some limit value here. Okay, so you would expect that you have something like this. Okay. So there are derivations of this from mechanistic point of view. We don't have time to do this here. Okay, but simple curve that has this characteristics is just n over 1 plus some constant. I will use h n. Okay, this function has this. When n is very small, the 1 is much larger than this one. This is a linear function, and for large n, I mean, if n goes to infinity, this goes just to the value 1 over h. So asymptotic value constant here. Okay, so that's very easy function. I mean, you said okay, but it's a little bit arbitrary. I can imagine other functions that do the same work. Okay, will this be important or not? Okay, well, there's place to. I mean, you can discuss this, but if you look at the book of Cotelli, for instance, you can show mechanistic derivation of this here. Okay, so yeah, usually, I mean, it will be this. Usually, this is written like this. There's some c here. Okay, and then you have 1 plus c times some tau times n. So I just called this one c times tau. But now c has dimensions 1 over time. Okay, in order to match the dimensions of this side. With this side, c has to be on 1 over time because there's no other time here. Okay, so c is 1 over time. That means that here c times tau should not be anything which has time, because you have to add it to 1. Okay, so this tau is a time variable. It's a time scale. Okay, and what you can show is that this is the time scale connected to the manipulation of the prey. The consumer, the predator, has some time, which he consumes the prey. I mean, he can say, you can think it catches the prey and takes some time to consume. Other way is, to think is also, it catches the prey, even if it consumes very quickly, it will be satiated and it will take some time for looking for other prey. So there's a time, so it stops actually preying. Okay, so this is the time related to manipulation. Okay, so what we have come to is something like this. Okay, crazy having rational function in the ODE, so and so on, but it's fine. But now I want to change also this, because this has the same functional form as this, because this is kind of conversion of prey that becomes new predators. So I want the same functional, but with a coefficient. Okay, so I will put this here. And that's my system that has carrying capacity and has satiation of the predator, and it has a time connected to the manipulation of prey. Okay, so that's called the Rosenzweig-Mercator equation. Rosenzweig-Mercator model. And well, the dynamics will depend on many factors. Now we have a lot of parameters, okay? But a simple way of looking at this is the dynamics will depend on if K is big or small, okay? So again, we can think about K as kind of control parameter. I will compare situations with rich environments with situations with poor environments, and maybe I get different things. And actually, the dynamics that turns out to be from here is there are two regimes. There's a critical K that you could calculate. So that if K is above the critical K, you will have oscillations which approach a certain cycle, a limit cycle. And if K is too small, then the damping effect, the stabilizing effect of the carrying capacity will be dominant, and you will go to a fixed point. Pretty much in the same way we went here. In other words, if this effect here is a destabilizing effect, and this one is a stabilizing effect, okay? So, for sure, we know that if this here is a very small effect, say this time t is a very short time, okay? Then this should not be very important, yes? Okay? Therefore, this would be the dominant term, and then you expect that it will just go to the fixed point by oscillations exactly with this thing. So now, if this here is now has a higher value here, then this effect can become important, and this is a kind of destabilizing effect. And what happens is that there is a balance between stabilizing and destabilizing effect, which will create you a limit cycle. So let's try to do it numerically, because this is a lot of playing with the right parameters, and this is it's something takes a time to find the good parameters.
Oh, I just want to add one example, because I was thinking about the snakes that have a really big tau, because the snakes just eat and spend like 1 week or something like that, a lot of time to feed again. So
okay, yeah, okay, because they different. You have a lot of time scales here. Okay, in 1 week may be a long time, but it depends. You have also the R. Okay, there's also a time scale which is important, and then you have also distance time scale here. So there's a balance between several time scales. Okay, and so maybe a week seems a long time, but depends on the life cycle of how long it lives, for instance, and so on. Yeah. So. Rosenzweig-Mercator. Okay, so this is the same code as before, but I just modified the equations. Okay. The projector. How do you do this? Okay, there it is. Okay, so here you see that I have what I had before, and now I have C times T, and so this big capital T is the tau. Okay. And so this is okay. Let's not go into the details of how to solve this. You have a function which has as parameters now all the parameters that we had before, like the C, E, D, K, and capital T, which is the characteristic time of manipulation or association. Okay? So I have to give values for this and see what happens. Okay, let me see if we start with that. Okay, this will be probably okay. So what I find here in this initial case is that the oscillations are increasing here. Okay, now the point would be, okay, how long will it go on increasing? Okay, and in order to have a better look at this, we want to know if we will go to a limit cycle or not. Let's look at the phase diagram. Okay, I could go on with very long time here, but I actually this is not an efficient program, and then it will crash. Okay, and so I took 500 times that. I think I can take it a little more, like 700. It will not crash. Okay, so it's increasing. Okay, so now this means what? We are in a situation where the destabilizing effect of this term is kind of dominating this one. Okay, because it is increasing. It's not going to a fixed point apparently. Okay, so you do this, and then you go and you make the same plot as before. Let's see what happens. Okay, and you see what is happening as you started somewhere here, and you go circling out. Okay, and this will approach to a certain value here that is the limit cycle. Okay, so here I didn't use a large enough dt, otherwise it's time consuming. Okay, so you see the small this breaking here. It's artificial due to numerical computation. Okay, so it's circling out. Okay, like this and going to somewhere asymptotic. Okay, so so I could also try to plot this with a different initial condition. Okay, let's see. Let's plot with a different initial condition. Let me comment this one, and this one, and take a different initial condition, which I will try to take something which is beyond where we were. Okay, so I will take it like 500, but 60. Okay. Hope this works. Emotions. Okay, so I will start somewhere here. Okay, 560. Okay, which is not the place where we were before. Okay, and so if you do this here, you get nothing. Okay, well, you get nothing. Okay, not good. Let's try 300. It's too big. It's too big. Okay. Okay, that's too big. Let's try with less time steps. Okay, it's too big. Okay, okay, never mind. That's how always happens, because this is the kind of thing that, you know, this is a little bit sensitive to exactly how long you take the integration and so on. But anyhow, what you were seeing is something that is circling out like this. Okay, you have some circle here. And if you start here, what you do is you give lots of circles here until you approach this one. Actually here, it took a lot of times circling until it approached. Probably if I adjust some parameters, I can get it quicker. Okay? And if I start here, I should circle like this. Okay. No, no. I mean, the way I'm drawing, it's not okay. Yeah, but it circles also. So what we had actually was this, because this means that it's increasing the amplitude until it gets to this one that is the preferred one. Okay, which is the limit cycle. Well, this guy here was the limit cycle somewhere here. Okay. I start inside. I increase. I oscillate in increasing amplitude, but then it slows down and goes to a fixed amplitude. And if I start here, I will decrease the amplitude, and that's the part that I couldn't do because there was some crash. Okay, yeah, because the other one was clearly this. You see the oscillation going up. Now, if you do this here with an initial condition here, it will fall down and go here. Okay, so that's the situation of a limit cycle. So now you expect the limit cycle to be destroyed at some point if k is small. Okay? So just the last integration to show you that the stabilizing, okay, we will try 300 and we will do it up to 500. It did work that last time. Okay, so, okay, you get this now. Sir, the carrying capacity 3000 give me circles, limit circles, okay? And, oops, not that one. Okay. Okay, no, now it's better. We had with K 3000, we had this situation. And T equal to 300, it has something that goes to a fixed point. Okay, so the K can be thought as a parameter that controls the stability, and you have two regimes. So somewhere between 300 and 3000, there's a critical K. Okay, so you could do a bifurcation analysis of this. It's not too difficult, but I mean, I don't want to go into this, but it's a whole new class. Okay, so that's what happens. Now, less discussion. Okay. Okay, let's say that K, we want to compare different situations with large, with large Ks. Okay, carrying capacity is very high. Now, I had a carrying capacity of 3000, but I could go for 10,000. Okay, probably would crash. I don't know, but anyhow, I could go for 10,000. Okay? Well, the limit cycle will be different. Okay, we know that if you decrease the carrying capacity, the cycles will go smaller and smaller, and at a certain point it's just a fixed point. And if K increases, the circles get larger and larger. Okay? So, there will be, for a very large case, something which goes like this. Right? So, this, for a very large case, we are enriching the environment. Right? We have a very rich environment which creates very big oscillations, but which almost go to zero, very close to zero, where I could be in a situation that any small fluctuation would take you to zero. Okay? So these oscillations here, I mean, I don't have it, but these would be oscillations, those oscillations which get really close to zero and then go up again. But it could be that here it's actually a mathematical artifact because you have 0.1 individuals, okay? Which is a zero in biological terms. Okay? So enriching this is sometimes called the paradox of enrichment. Okay? So K has a stabilizing effect, and the other part here, which is this is called the functional response. Okay, that's a name. Okay, functional response, and the functional response is such that it has a destabilizing effect. But if I increase K a lot, I still have the effect of K being somehow stabilizing, but with very large circles, with high amplitude. And this means that for enriched environments, predictions enriched environments will lead to crashes of the population, in this case. And this is called the paradox. It's not a paradox, actually, okay? Paradox is something else. I mean, it's a prediction that maybe can be conflicting with reality, okay? So, Rosenzweig-Mercator is kind of now seen, if you want to do some theoretical work, and you want a predator-prey model, nobody will use Lotka-Volterra at this point. Okay, this is the kind of standard model. Okay, that's the minimal elements to make this minimally realistic. But also, you should take care with this kind of predictions. Can you do it? Can you see it? It's difficult to see because if they crash, they will go away. So it predicts crashes after long cycles. You can obviously do experiments in the lab, and you will see it, because in the lab you manipulate things. You manipulate K, everything is manipulated, and you will see it. And it's not even difficult. I mean, you can go to very small numbers of individuals and so on. Now, in nature, out there, let's say, maybe this is more difficult to observe, because if the circles, I mean, the populations are not new. I mean, the populations are there. And then you should have some situation where they already are kind of circling, and then somehow there's a modification of the environment of something that will have the effect of increasing the carrying capacity. Okay, that happens, for instance, in lake eutrophication systems. A lot of pollution in a lake. This is all the pollution is also resources for some from plants, and so you can have this. So you can have in nature, in principle, kind of situation, but it's difficult to observe because it's not controlled. Okay, so you need some kind of artificial case where you can increase the carrying capacity artificially, or that something happens that the carrying capacity increases, and then you will see if this has really large amplitude cycles or not. Okay. So that's it for predation. Okay, I could spend another hour about new effects in with predator-prey theory. For instance, we could have also the interference between predators. Okay, if the number of prey is small, or if the prey is not small but it's concentrated in a certain region of space, then you expect that there will be a kind of interference between the competitor. I mean, it will be competing, actually, okay, for the prey. Therefore, this will generate a different functional response. This will be modified also. And then you have another effects, which are effects connected to the interference within the predators. And then, well, there's a whole new thing, not very new, I mean, new, 10 or 20 years, that it is actually, couldn't we just write this in this way, okay? Instead of writing this like this will be some C times the P, okay, times some function, which I will use F, of N, okay? And this is called the functional response, right? Which maybe not it's not this one, but it's something else. Maybe you could try to measure it, okay, and get it measured. Okay? Instead of playing around with what you think about the things, you could try to measure it. There are practically no results on this with good measurements. It's difficult also, and that's where the people that I told you that wrote together a paper, even being opponents scientifically, the point where they agree is that it would be very nice to measure this, okay, and then you could maybe solve the antagonism, because one of the guys, Peter Armens, thinks that this is okay. But Ginsburg then thinks that instead of having f of n, you should have f of n over p. Okay? So that's called a prey-dependent functional response, and this is called I think it's ratio-dependent functional response, and they have different consequences and so on. And at the end, they agree that, there's no enough data even to decide if this depends only on n or on p, on how it could be in n and p. So thank you. So tomorrow we don't have classes, and Friday is rediscussing things we have discussed in competition and predation. So we have also the possibilities of questions. I see that nobody puts questions there, yeah. But I would really be very glad of having a full box, not an empty box. Okay, the carrying capacity of this box is very large. Okay. Well, okay. So thank you. And,